Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Today we're reading chapters 49 through 51 of Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn.
But before we can get into all of that, let's talk about what happened previously on Wizard Team. So, Mariah was leading the group through volition, and as she did so, Bree was dealing with her heightened medium powers, i.e., her ability to see and feel the ancestors who have like taken over the grounds and have made volition what it is. She says goodbye to her friends dramatically, even though it's temporary. And everyone on the side is like, girl, if y'all don't get it together. They go to the guest house. She goes to the guest house because she's the guest. She goes to the big house as she's a guest of the big house. They go to the off the side guest houses as like there's different rules that the ancestors have for who can be in a big house, and they're not it. After a night, it doesn't even get to like her plan is often like I feel like how I fall asleep. Her plan was to sit down for a couple of minutes. What actually happened was she fell asleep, took a nap, and she is able to, when she's out of her nap, to go like play part in the food making, feel some ancestral ties there, and then after that she gets some good food and rest, and then later is able to call on each of her ancestors to learn more about using root offensively and defensively with like actual like pulling and calling of her magic. But as she calls each one, they're traumatized, and the ones who even know how to do that refuse to give her that information because they want to protect her. And this makes her especially frustrated. So by the time she gets to Vera, the one who called her a wound turned weapon, she goes off. Vera responds accordingly because they're the same blood, same kind of energy. And when Vera is tasked with having cursed her family, she disappears. And Bree accidentally gets so angry that she puts a hole through the barrier of protection around Volition.
Yikes.
Yikes indeed.
Just a little oopsie. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy, oopsie doopsie. So that's where we start off with chapter 49. This is actually a really short chapter. I was like, yay, because we were talking about last week. My chapters, we'd be like, an hour pushing in, like, okay, well, maybe we could get to the next page. So Bree, as we said in the last, she punches a hole through the barrier. So she takes off running. When in doubt, when whelmed over, run.
But also fight or flight, and she's like, flight.
When you're
gassed, I gotta go.
When you're gassed or flabbered, you gotta go. So she is running, and someone's like, Bree, wait, stop. It's Sel. And then she trips on a log, which I find so funny because okay, well so she trips on a log, and Sel is there to make sure that she's okay. And she's like, breaking down, saying how sorry she is, and how she messed up everything. And Sel is like, well, the ancestors are putting the barrier back up right now. They're calling Val to see. She's like, well, what about like, the hunter, basically? He probably felt that. And they're like, they're calling Val to see how big of a bomb she let off, basically, like ether bomb she made, and if that's gonna bring demons to Volition. And what I find so funny about this is that, like, so she's knocked down the shield, basically, and she's worried about.
She didn't even knock it all the way down.
No, she just busted a hole in it. And she's worried that, like, this, like, blast of power is, like, called demons to like, or at least made them aware of volition, and like, that's like the, what do they call that? The epicenter of the quake, basically. And so they might all be descending on this. And this happened because she was very upset because she did not get from her ancestors any concrete way to use her root offensively. And I know, I understand panic and anxiety doesn't, logic and those things don't go together, but her panic and her fight or flight, or her flight, made her then into the open,
Leave the
leave the
protection.
protective barrier.
Literally.
When she does not know how to use her, she still doesn't know how to use the root.
She's still flaming.
And she's still, she hasn't even put out the like power surge.
I feel like as someone, I find this all very relatable, to be honest.
Oh, totally.
To have done an oopsie and be such a like recovering perfectionist, and so done an oopsie and it's like, okay, no, I can't live with this. I have to get away. I have to go.
Sorry. I'm not trying to, recovering perfectionist.
Recovering. I'm working on it.
Working on it.
You're working on it. You're working on it.
It's in progress. There's a bar of progress that's happening. So running away from it being, so the avoidance of an oopsie by flight feels very it relates to things that I have done in the past. And like having being stopped by tripping over a log, like it hurts, but like pain sadly seems sometimes to like break your, like when your brain is like stuck in like that
Panic.
like panic. Like I feel like it's like in my mind, like whenever people say, "Are you out of your rabbit as mind?" Like I feel like that's the mindset of panic. Like you're like when a rabbit is just like, oh, like freaking out. Like I feel like that's what it feels like. And I can totally relate. And like the pain of tripping and falling, like your own clumsiness being the thing that saves you from your panic. I can like all of that is totally relatable to me. Sad but true. And I just,
no, I'm not at all trying to be like, I mean, as someone also who has like a diagnosed panic disorder, like this is, I am aware, but I just feel like I just feel like there was a way to do this, and this wasn't the way.
Do you ever think about the way to do it when you're panicking?
But it just is like, and the thing I enjoy about it too, is it's so Bree, right? So I think I've brought this up now multiple times in this book. It's like she will do something, she will react, and then immediately feels guilt about it. Like she's reacting in emotion, or she's acting, I guess. She's acting in emotion, and then will immediately react through guilt and like, oh no, what did I do? And obviously, she hasn't been able to talk to the Dr. Patricia in a minute. There's no time for some like real therapy and work, but it just is worth noting that this is how she responds, and that these responses are not helpful and are downright dangerous. I just think that we should just name it, just be aware of it, because had all of her fears come to pass and a bunch of demons felt that blast of power and were close enough, and I think, I mean, I can't 100% remember, but I'm pretty sure they did feel it, and they are on the way. They're not there yet, but like Erebus knows where to come get her. So
I love that part where Sel is like, the hunter hasn't come for you yet. And it's like, you're not gonna believe this.
Wait till I tell you. So it's just like, it's just funny. And so so she is also worried. She's worried about like the hunter. She's worried about she's worried about volition and what her outburst meant to volition. But then she's like, what if Vera never speaks to me again? And Sel
Mm.
says there is no one harder on her than herself, which is true. But pot, meet kettle, meet the whole goddamn kitchen.
He's
Because
an expert at being hard on himself, so he
He's like,
recognizes the
yeah,
this
real
was the
recognize
boy that
real.
was ready to die a couple chapters ago. Just plead guilty, take the death sentence. I did it. It's on me. This whole time, Bree is still smoking. Like, she's still got red eyes. Like, the ether is like, the root is just coming off of her in droves. And she goes to touch Sel, and he's like, and kind of backs up, and then has to explain to her how big the hangover was last time they shared her power. He said it took him 3 days to like, for that to I guess be sober,
fade.
to fade. And he was embarrassed and is unsure about if like if he should partake in her ether again, because he is, he said like, I'm in mid descent. So I did like that, like, finally the Sel that Nick told Bree about and that she's been like waiting on shows up, where he's like truthfully being like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know how much of like your root I can handle. So then he asked Bree what she needs, and or what she wants to feel, and she says she wants to feel safe. And he bust out a pin, like the bobby pin or whatever, safety pin, and it's like,
Safety pin.
you feel safe with Nick. And she's like, yeah. And so but then she asked him, like, does he feel safe with Nick? And he says, for the most part, safe and normal. And I forgot. I saw something on, it was either on Threads or on Twitter. I mean, they all blur together, about how people are sick of love triangles, because they're not love triangles, they're
That
hinges.
thread was actually on both.
And I literally tagged with her team. I was like, well, I know one person who's got that down. So let me pull this up because I just want to read it. Says, so Bree asked Sel, do you feel safer with Nick too? And he goes, sometimes safer, more whole. And so then she asked, do you trust me? And he goes, I do. And so she doesn't know if it will work, but she decides to try to pull Sel in on this blood walk. So she pricks herself and says, by my blood, while holding Sel's wrist and the Pendragon necklace. And that is where this chapter ends.
Two things, because one of the things I meant to say a second ago. I just enjoyed, like, whenever they were having the ether discussion and whether like he should be like picking up on Bree's magic, the fact that like he's talking about the scent of it and how much that kind of like stayed with him for like days even after the effects of the ether were gone. And it was very warming to me to see that he's just as entranced by her smell as she is by his. Because I feel like we kept getting that in Legendborn, how much she was like, I keep smelling him. And now it's like, oh, like he's just as wrapped up in her smell as she is in his. So that it feels I like a reciprocity within a relationship. And that one, it feels like nice to have that confirmation.
I
And
have to say, as someone who, sorry, I was just gonna say, as someone whose like sense of smell is not that strong, I do not understand it. I mean, I know that it's a thing, and like I know that scent is like one of the bigger like triggers of memory and like comfort and stuff like that, but I'm always like, what? Sorry, every
I
time
think
it
it's
comes
also
up.
like you don't a lot of times you don't like, I don't usually notice it until I do, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, it's like
sometimes
not
Ami will come up
conscious.
to me and she'll give me a hug and she'll be like, "You smell like Bayana." And I'm like, "I don't know what that means." Hopefully that is a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, I
I
assume.
feel like smells are like
But like
attributes.
it's like yeah, and sometimes like I remember going to friends' houses and like as a
Mhm.
kid and being like, "Oh, it smells like their house." You know what I mean? Like it's like it's kind of a neutral thing, but it's like there's a sense of like familiar usually if it's something like somebody's like natural scent, it's usually like uh um there's like a sense of comfort that you get from it if it's someone that you
If you've been
know
around
or
them
a
that
place that you're
long.
familiar with.
Yeah, if you're that close to them
And
to know
also
their
usually it's like you're not
smell.
looking at you know what I mean? Like I don't usually like usually it happens too either if you haven't seen somebody in a while or if you're not necessarily using like your sight, it's stronger. So it's weird. It's not usually as strong as I think they make them in
In books.
fantasy stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's my thing. It's like I understand that it's a thing, but it's never been like so conscious that it would be top of mind the way that it is in the book. Like the way that in books they are constantly mentioning it, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
I guess.
I think it's just another
But
way
yeah,
to describe, like, connections to people though. Um, so it's not just the same
I feel like it's a
description
note
or
of,
whatever.
like, how again, how your closeness to that person, like, in the again, like, you're completely correct, like, how they do it in fantasy books is very, like, exaggerated, but when I think
Mhm.
of, like, the people that I've noticed, like, distinct sense for, usually it's like a it comes to you kinda like I don't know if I know people have the different ways that they're inputting information, but, like, maybe if you, like, remember how their voice sounds or something like that, like, if it's been a while since you've spoken to them. Sometimes it just, like, pops up on you when you're like, "Oh," and you're like you realize, like, "Oh, I miss that person because like, now their smell is coming to me
Mhm.
out of nowhere, and I'm like, "Oh" you're like, "Oh, crap," like, that's so it's been a while since I smelled that smell because 'cause it's been a while since I seen that person or whatever. So I get that, but I'm hoping I'm hoping that them cluing in onto each other's scent is gonna have some actual like use later, where it's like, oh, like I like they're concerned that they haven't seen Bree in a while, or she's concerned she hasn't seen Sel in a while, but she's like, I know he's okay because I can smell his wards. You know what I mean? Like maybe it'll be something that's useful
Mhm.
later. But in the meantime, it's like y'all are obsessed with each other. And that's fine. At least y'all both have it.
Literally.
Portia
And then the
said, "Get a
second note.
hobby."
And
Sorry.
their hobby is each other, and it's, like, fine, as long as it's mutual. And then the other note was that, um, I didn't know how to label Sel's recognition of, her having safety as her primary, like, emotion towards Nick, and, like, why she, like, goes to contact him is from, like it's, like, very giving of him in a way that he's, like, because he has his own feelings for her, that he's, like,
Mhm.
"I'm willing to, like, help her find her sense of safety even if it's with this other guy that I'm actually also into." Um, but also, like, a level of, like, just regular good observation for someone to have on someone else where it's she never told him, "I feel safe when Nick is around." He recognized, like,
Mhm.
she feels safe when she's with when Nick's around. Um, so it's just, like, the different layers of that I'm like, he's been watching you enough to get to know, like, how to help you before you just even know that you need that kinda help, which is I enjoy for, like, the romance of it all, but I'm also a little sad because 'cause I'm like, "Ugh, she finds safety in the arms of another."
I think it's also like she just told him when they got to Volition, like, "Oh, this is the first time that we're going to, or this is the first time in a long time we're going to be able to like sleep and not be worried about, being hunted down, or there's not like a Jonas or, someone of that like nature lurking, and so we'll be able to like actually like feel safe. And so I think it
Rest.
also is rest. Thank you. That's the right word. And I think it's also that, like you said, like he's been watching her for a very long time. Partially for or initially because he thought she was
He
a
wanted to
demon.
kill her.
But even now it's like she uh she will go and do these like blood walks and things, and it's usually at a really bad time or after something really like
Traumatic
traumatic
has
has
happened.
happened, and comes back like in the plane after they escaped the institute, and right after Kizia and Jonas. There was another time in this book, I can't remember like exactly what had just happened. Oh, they're at the lodge. Like it's just like not the time. Um so I think there's also that point too of like him paying attention to her and like knowing that that's what she needs, but also I wonder, and I think because she asked him like, does he make you feel safe? So I wonder if she's thinking like, oh, he's picking up on that because it's a familiar impulse because he feels it too. And I just don't buy that damsel in distress Nick is where you go when you need to feel safe. He can't even keep himself safe. Emotions are weird.
Not that kind of yeah, I'm like, I don't think it's that kind of safety.
Well, what other kind of safety is there?
What kind of safety
There's
is it?
emotional safety. There, you know what I mean? Like it's I feel like it's more comfort. She doesn't
Mm,
think he's gonna save like the whole time she's been trying to save him. So it's not like she thinks he's gonna save her, but I think there's a level of like they were partners before, right? So I think she's used to having him as someone who's there for her in those moments. Yeah. I think yeah. I definitely don't think it's a physical safety. I think it's an emotional safety.
I've not
She's gotten
seen.
used to relying on him in these kinds of situations. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like we saw all the stuff that was going down in Legendborn. Like the two of them were together for that. That was like they were it was their partnership. It was their mission, their secret mission or whatever. So I think she's used to that.
I don't see how, because in this book, she's been contacting him through these blood walks. I don't see how any of the things that have happened within these blood walk interactions with Nick have secured in her brain a level of like emotional safety. Like, what has he actually said to her? Like, I guess, this is her relationship with Nick. And I ain't gonna
Yeah,
just.
I'm not saying
Okay.
no, I think it's an emotional but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's like doing anything you know what I mean? Like I
He's
think
not
it's a
actively an emotional safety kind of place. He's like, cause like, and
yeah,
everyone's in it
she's
for
just
themselves to an extent. So I'm not even gonna like hold you. Like I'm not even gonna like bad mouth Nick as much as I want to. It's the fact that like he's equally in their conversations, like trying to get somewhere with her while she's looking to him for her to hold her emotions together. And I'm like, he don't even have it together for he doesn't have what is he
none of them
doing?
have it together. None of them have it together.
But what is like he can't
Um,
even what is he holding? Like what is he actually emotionally availably like what is he doing?
okay, maybe it's a romantic safety. I don't know. She just wants to make out with him in the in the dream. I don't know.
Maybe it's
I don't
hormonal safety?
she's
fully know the logic.
she's
It's
just
just the truth of what it is.
she has just prescribed this to him whether or not he did anything
He
to
or not.
deserve.
And and we all go through moments where we project onto other people things that we want them to be for us. So again,
Exactly
and
that.
I'll leave it there.
Because my relationship with JC is going strong. And I started that
Oh.
shit when I was 8, and he still has no idea who I am. So I get it. I get it.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective, which provides content through the lens of critical and creative fandom. In B&C's Discord, you can not only find a channel dedicated to all things Wizard Team, but spaces to connect with other fellow nerds about stories across media, genre, and more. Join a group read, find book recommendations, and maybe even get the juice to write your own story. Just go to bnc-community.com to join.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles, plus a professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Here on Wizard Team, it's no surprise that we love books. We also love supporting the independent bookstores.
With our bookshop affiliate link, you can not only get all the books on your TBR, but you can support indie bookstores and B&C at the same time.
And if you're not sure what you want, that ain't no problem. Check out our The Plot Thickens list full of recommendations from none other than Porshèa herself.
Head to www.bookshop.org/shop/BlackNerdsCreate to treat your shelves.
Treat your shelves.
Oh, that's nice. That's clever.
Oh my goodness.
That's clever. Chapter 50? Yes. So Bree comes to in one of Arthur's memories. It's party time.
Excellent.
Because the Shadow King is dead.
Ding dong,
So,
the king
you
is
know.
dead. Look at your witch, but it's the Shadow King.
That was like 4 songs in one. She said just put them all in.
All of them. So yeah, so they Bree, so they're celebrating because the Shadow King's dead. Bree immediately reaches for Lancelot. She's like, he's sitting right next to her. She's like, I know, let's get down to business.
Wait, okay,
so
sorry.
To defeat the Huns?
Oh.
Is the
Yes.
Shadow King also the Demon King? And is the Demon King also Erebus? But here's my question. Here's the real question.
I believe so.
Here's the real question. Was Shadow King Erebus's daddy or something? And he's the inheritor of the crown? Or is Erebus the Shadow King gone to grounds? Everyone thinks he's dead, but he's been alive this whole time.
I think it's the I think it is the Shadow. He's the Shadow King.
Because they also say he's not dead. They lost his crown, so he's defeated. It gives me Ragnarok, Thor, where Homeboy was just without the crown, couldn't reach his full power. And then when he got his crown, then that's when Ragnarok happened. Because he.
But why say he's dead? Like, is this the beginning of propaganda?
I think it's because they fundamentally don't understand or want to understand demons. They just want to defeat them and use their power. Because I was reading this chapter like, oh shit, he wants her. It's like, is he wanting her to get the crown? Is that where we're going with this? Because I forgot about the crown thing and Thor immediately popped in my mind because I am Odin trash. But like, I think that is the understanding is that they have his crown, which is kind of like, proof of his demise. And someone said he was dead, but then I think further along, it's a little bit like he's not in control and they've all scattered.
Well, they said they said they all scattered, but it doesn't say that, like, yeah. Bayana has a quote. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So then so Bree reaches for Lancelot. Nick appears. His eyes are heavy with sorrow. He's kind of confused as to why he just says why, but my assumption is that it's kind of like, why would you even want to talk to me in the first place after I just left y'all or whatever. But she says it's because she misses him. And he's like, I miss you too.
Not enough to
Nick
not
is
run
immediately
off.
like,
sorry.
Well,
sorry.
You missed me so much. As soon as you saw me across the trees, you was like, out. Bye. See you around.
But I do think that I think that what he kind of explains, while it doesn't make sense in the like, or not while it doesn't make sense, while it is still disappointing and the impact is still felt, I do think that it makes sense for his thought process, if that makes anyway. But so Nick immediately wants to talk, but Bree is like, wait. And Nick is kind of like, because they can pull, or they can access like the memories of the folks that they're inside of. Gross, sorry. And so he's like, nothing happens that's like important. But Bree's just like, just wait, I want to see if it worked. So Merlin enters carrying this black bundle, and they're kind of staring at him. He has like long black hair with like little silver streaks or whatever. And they're both kind of searching for kind of not remnants, but like traces of Sel in him. I think Bree is searching more literally, but Nick doesn't yet know what Bree is trying to do. So I think he's just, that is Sel's ancestor. And so Merlin throws the bundle to the ground, which just feels... So it's the Shadow King's crown. I'm like, damn, you just throwing crowns on the ground now? Like, what the like, no
a little much
respect for, what if it's shattered?
Imbued with power, and he can feel like it's been draining him this whole time. Like, what if he
maybe
it's been like, maybe he was just like, oh, like it's like it was like dragging.
Right.
And he's like, I
gotta go. So the crown is towering, menacing, and obsidian black. It's so dark it absorbs light even now, dimming the little illumination offered by the chandelier overhead. If solar crowns have a circle of radiant spires, the Shadow King's crown is the exact opposite. Its spires are blades of night as long as a man's hand, nearly daggers themselves. So like very tall, sharp.
Can't wait for this to be adapted because I don't know what's going on with that.
I'm kind of
I assume like the prongs, like it's very dark, and then the prongs of the the little
crown,
I don't know what crown things,
tines,
are
the
like,
tines,
are like very long, sharp.
It's giving
knives.
Hela from the Thorverse, and then
yes,
yeah.
But for me, it's what it sounds like is that it has like where a regular crown, when the light hits it, it has like prisms and stuff, instead of having like when the darkness hits it, shadows are coming from it. Like it's like the opposite.
Oh, I was thinking more like a black hole, like where it's just hard to kind of like see it because it's sucking in all of the light. But either way, still can't wait for the adaptation so I can see it, or someone draw it. I don't know.
Animate it.
There you go. But they got the crown, and Merlin kind of fine. We didn't.
He's a hottie.
Sure.
I mean, Bree spends way more time talking up Merlin, what Merlin got going on, than what the crown looked like.
That's true.
She got
you want me to read it?
The gray, and then you don't have to read it. I'm just saying we need to acknowledge.
And the last time we saw,
I said he has
Merlin,
like the long hair. You got the little gray highlights.
With the little tips of his ears.
The first time, I'm just saying, this isn't the first time we've seen
Bree
like think about how hot he is. Like this is like the last time she ran into Merlin, she was like, he's a hottie, and he's like, yeah, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. He's
so
still fine.
More details about how hot he is. Still got it honest. Is all I'm trying to say.
He came by it honestly.
He didn't get it. He didn't get it from his mama. He got it from his Merlin.
His great.
He got it from his Merlin. Oh Lord.
So the memory is also proving that the Shadow Court is real. So it was mentioned before, and Sel was like, "That's just a legend," which y'all are literally legend born. But okay.
I was hoping you would say
it. Real credits.
But anywho, it proves the Shadow Court is real and that the Round Table fought them. Arthur but / Bree holds the crown high and says, "The Shadow King is fallen and his court has scattered, weakened without their leader. The Round Table will force him behind the gate our sorcerer has crafted to be barred from our world for all of eternity." So I had a question about the gate part, because it says like it's a gate that Merlin has created. I'm curious, like, were there other gates, or is he making one to banish them? I guess there was that scene or whatever where he like they were going through the gate trying to colonize the Shadow Realm, and then it backfired. So maybe there are other ones, or were other ones.
Maybe that was the gate that existed the whole time.
It's the same gate.
It's the same gate, but it doesn't make any. Is Camelon not them colonizing the Shadow Realm, or because like I feel like this is the problem with like the colonizer being able to control the narrative, because like also I feel like in like Legendborn, the story is that like the two realms were like at some point were in the same occupying the same space, and like Arthur and them like beat them back into their own space. So
I guess we're still not clear, and I think it's probably on purpose. Like we're getting things kind of piecemeal.
yeah,
And so it's still not really clear who. I mean, I think it's clear that some demons are, should be stopped. And some are just minding their business, and but I feel like, yeah, I don't know. It's not clear, and I like I think what's not clear is like where it started,
Yeah.
because they're just kind of fighting, and they're in this like, we're defending the humans from the demons, which sounds like, yeah, that's something you should be doing, but we don't really know how this started, or like when because it feels like the Shadowborn have been around and have like lived in this world from the beginning. So like at what point is that problematic, or at what point, you know what I mean? Like what started all of this? It's not clear. And I'm sure we'll learn it, but I think it makes it kind of murky.
I feel like there's just like clues that we have accumulated, and we just have to like hold out until we have like either we're gonna get a full explanation, or we'll put all the clues together and then have confirmation of whatever we determined from the clues later.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
was under the impression like there are. I went from Thor to Doctor Who. Fixed gates in time, and then there are like Merlin and like certain people who can like open new gates or new portals, which they probably shouldn't, and those are the problem, and that's how people are like the other demons are like eking through, because they're opening a bunch of like additional gates that shouldn't exist.
Right, which is what what's his name was doing.
Yeah, but
Dead Davis.
Yeah. But yes, but I'm just curious, like, was somebody opening a gate? And well, no, it's like if the gates are can only be opened by people with demon blood, then they had to have been opened by the demons initially for them to even get on the other side to make Merlins in the first place.
yeah.
We're putting the clues together. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. So a young woman like shows up. She has dark hair, pale skin, and offers to take the crown from Arthur. She calls him brother, so we know immediately that they're related, but this turns out to be Morgaine.
Oop.
But before Arthur can pass the crown to her, Merlin intercepts it, and is like, "I'll handle it myself." Morgaine kind of blushes and is like, "My bad, I'll, sorry, my lord," whatever. And we find out from Lancelot that she
Who is a sassy
Merlin's
man.
apprentice. very, very he's like, it's like he enjoys teasing. So he's like, so
He enjoys
first that's
teasing and tea. Like, he's sassy. Like,
yeah,
he's like,
very much.
he wants to get under them pants. Like, we know what she wants. And Arthur's like, can we not? And he's like, and
Can we
I will
not?
continue to, actually.
Anyway. Yeah. So Morgane is Merlin's apprentice, but it's also clear that she has feelings for him, of which Lancelot thinks is scandalous. And Arthur is like, please, let's not talk about my sister. And Lancelot, he's like, she's your half sister, so I'll keep half quiet. Which, dang.
Cold world.
It's cold. But also, so Lancelot, before Arthur says that, like, Lancelot's like, yeah, I think she wants more from you or whatever. And Merlin goes, I am aware. And he says it in a way that's like so Sel that both Bree and Nick kind of like
Pause.
are jarred. You know what I mean? They're like, oh shit. So after that little kind of moment, Bree reaches. Oh,
because this is my question. Because after this whole exchange,
Mhm.
my question is the actual fight that is happening over the Shadow Crown. Like, they say it's to keep the Shadowborn on the other side, but the Shadowborn coming over to this realm to reclaim the Shadow Crown, and Erebus, his whole thing is to reclaim the Shadow Crown, and seeing how Morgane was actively trying to take it, was that her plan to, like, is she actually the keeper of the crown? Like, are all of the order, the Morganes, and the Shadow Realm, are they all actually tussling over whoever has the crown, has the
the crown.
ability
I
to,
mean,
like,
I
control
kind of get
everything?
the impression, like, or from what I remember, the Morganes were um Merlins who
Broke
kind of
away.
like didn't want to be, yeah, but I assumed that it was like an order thing, like, you know what I mean, like a disagreement about how the order should be run versus like actual like nefarious purposes, if that makes sense. So I kind of assumed, I don't know if I'm
Mhm.
correct, but I kind of assumed that the more like that this Morgane is not a part of that, because I guess it sounded like when we were talking about when the Morganes were introduced, it sounded like that was something that happened, like the split was something that happened more recently.
Yeah.
And recent in the sense of like after Arthur and them are long
Gone. Yeah.
dead. And that they were calling themselves Morganes not because of a direct connection, but as
Tribute
another, I
or
don't know. Yeah. Although it did make me think though that it's possible that because Morgane isn't a Merlin, at least it doesn't seem like it. So it's possible though that like her and Merlin do get together, and then most Merlins are also descendants of Morgane. That was a thought I had
My
here
thought
too.
was that, like, there's a reason why Merlin intercepts it from Morgane, and it's because where
Mhm.
Lancelot says she wants more than just to, like, be its apprenticeship, and like Lancelot means like sexually. I'm taking in, like, Merlin saying I'm aware. I take Merlin saying I'm aware as, no, he sees it more that she wants power and not
Mm,
necessarily the sexual part. So he was intercepting her holding on to the actual power that was the crown, because he's like, I
right.
know, like, if I left it to her, something nefarious would happen because she has a bigger picture.
Like can't be
She
trusted
can't
for
be
some
trusted
reason.
with, like,
yeah.
with my plan, because she has her own plan that will be counter to what
Mhm.
I'm trying to do right now.
Mhm. Yeah, I could see either way, honestly. I'm very curious about that like
Exchange.
relationship
Hmm.
and just like what is going on, cuz she's also Arthur's sister, so like, which is a plot twist, but I'm curious. We don't really see much of their relationship other than just the mention that they're related, but that's pretty much it at this point.
I feel like in some
Um
there's a decent amount of author and like retellings and lore that like Morgane is his sister
mhm.
sometimes. Also
Yeah.
believing in the
No, I
like
just mean within the story there's no like they're conversation is in passing. Yeah. And I think she turns up again towards the end when Bree's, you know, I don't want to get to it yet. We still have another week before it happens. But
That deep sigh, though, that was when Bree.
The deep sigh was more foretelling than anything else.
No, because I'm just not ready for it. So yeah, so Bree reaches for Merlin because Merlin's like, "Oh, I'm about to take the crown back or whatever." So Bree's like, "This is a lot. This is, now or never."
My shot.
He reaches for Merlin, and Nick like realizes what she's doing, like kind of right before she reaches for him. And then Sel flickers in. He's kind of like slowly processing where he is and who's with him. He kind of like his eyes trail up to Bree, and then his kind of perspective expands, and he sees Nick and like sees where they are. And so he cusses immediately because Sel has no fucking coup. And then Nick goes, Sel, and Sel goes, Nicholas. And then they reach out for each other, and they like basically they kiss foreheads. And it's so sweet. And I just can't, it's just because Nick reaches for him first. And the last time Bree saw them with each other, they were definitely not in a good place. And he just reaches for him and slides his hand back of his neck, and Sel does the same thing, and they press their foreheads together. It's very cute. And Bree watches them, feeling safety, like that sense of safety that expands to some other emotion, twisting into something painful and beautiful at the same time.
They are so goddamn
So
dramatic.
she's things. They're all in love. It's very dramatic. It's extremely dramatic. Dog, none of like
love it, but also
none of this had to really happen, and I love it. But it's also extremely dramatic. Like there are just these moments we have to remember, like, okay, these are teenagers. And obviously, like, it's a book. You've gotta ratchet up the like emotion. But it's very dramatic and very sweet. Yeah. And I think it kind of helps too to get like this other. I think we in Legendborn, obviously it's pretty clear that their relationship is complicated, but they're like at odds almost the entire time.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're butting heads, but our relationship is complicated. And then in this sense, you're like seeing kind of a different side of that. And all that other stuff is still there, that baggage and that,
it's also really
all
weird.
Of their kind of like issues are still there, but they also, it's kind of like when like Sel was talking about, like Nick makes him feel more whole, and like part of that is probably because of the damn Kingsmage oath, but also they grew up together, and like so there's just a
and that was what
there's a lot going on there.
That was what I wanted to also acknowledge, is that like as much as we the readers are not mourning Dud Davis, like Dud Davis raised Sel in a way too, even if it was like a shitty way. And so they're also, this is another reason why I'm like ooh about them having this triangle anyway, because they were raised together, and like not that I don't whatever, but so they are also like, this is the first time they're seeing like really grappling too with like this like new, they were always pit against each other growing up. It's not that they had like a healthy relationship with the man, but they each had their own complicated relationship with him. And this is the first time that they're seeing each other post his demise. And so that was possibly also bringing up other emotions and like helping talk through like why it's so dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, all the emotions are extremely high at this point. Like they've all been going through it.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Chelsea says the most triangle-y of love triangles, and yes,
yeah,
definitely.
We're
gonna end up with a harem. Reverse harem.
I definitely don't have anything that involves Nick within it. I'm not gonna have the most
It's a
sympathy,
throuple. Just get
more
on board.
interest for. But this is the most throuple in the series I've ever seen the series really go. So I will give this couple of sentences at the end of this chapter, like it's due for this is the most throuple-y I've ever seen it. And I probably have seen in most books, and especially YA like books. Like whenever they try to act like they're gonna do a like polyamorous like relationship, it doesn't really go that way. And I feel like this is the first time I've seen a semblance of it where I'm like, oh, I could see how that functions. I will just say though, this is like my second time reading it, third technically because we're doing it live. And the first time I was like, okay, I see the throuple. Second time I'm like, oh, and it's like at this point I'm tired.
Just get resigned. Go from tired to resigned. Be resigned to the throuple.
Like it is.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Like, okay. All right, we're here. All right.
It's just be Thanos with the shit. Like,
I mean, it's inevitable, but I will say, like, we don't know how it's gonna end.
Oh, I don't.
Like, she has
honestly think that it will end in a throuple just because it is being published like traditionally published. Like, I just don't think that we're.
Well, no, there are other books that have like Iron Widow is a throuple from the beginning, or not the beginning, but pretty
early on.
Much, but like
Iron
I think that there
YA?
are.
I thought it was.
It is YA.
Oh,
it's YA. But I also am not totally convinced that any of them are going to end up together. So that's kind of
yeah.
The more I
hoping
like
not,
have
because
like
I hate
thought
trauma
about
bonds.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more I've thought about it, the more I'm kind of like, I don't know that they'll even.
I hope
that
they
it'll
all end up
go that
together on a couch in therapy. That's where I hope they end up.
I feel
Or
like they will
separately, on
probably.
separate couches in therapy. I don't care. I just want them.
Yeah, they all should be in therapy for sure.
Because the PTSD is complex. So
Bree's already is.
right.
I mean, I'm sure theirs was too, but they haven't been diagnosed.
Right.
Ooh, talk about war crimes and child soldiers. Here we are.
Why were we talking?
When you talk about the PTSD, I'm like, wow, like what kind of PTSD, like what kind of therapy, what their therapy look like? I'm like, it has to be rooted in the fact that they've been child soldiers for their whole lives, like Sel and Nick, basically. Yeah.
Ooh, I hate it. You're not wrong. I just.
Yep. I'm feeling sympathy for the therapist who has to like, how do you even start on this? Like, okay, we'll have to like figure out like, what is your child? Oh, you were trained as a child to murder
and die. Sacrificially.
Murder and
just throw yourself on the sword at the ripe age of 17. Jesus Christ.
Or knowing that people are going to sacrifice themselves for you.
Also, people that
because of
that like supernatural beings are going to have it out for you on site.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a rough situation.
Get someone else to
and
do
then
it.
You're not who you thought that you were. Or you're not in the line that you thought that you grew up thinking that you were in because your ancestor
was a human trafficker.
Which not only invalidates
and a rapist.
It's like it not only invalidates like all the shit that you went through to get to this point, like personally, but then also like it's not you because of rape. And it also happens to be somebody that you care about.
Who is the like symbol of that rape.
This is all really fucked up. Like
it is
Tracy.
so
like,
it is so fucked.
So fucked
It is so, like, when you lay it out, you just point by point, bullet point this
It
shit
just gets
out.
worse and worse. Oh my god.
She said, you know what we need? Trauma.
An abundance of
I'm
trauma.
gonna write a story about grief, and let me tell you.
In abundance. Well,
Overflowing.
there's never a question of, is there too little trauma? No. No, baby. There's so much trauma to go around.
You get a trauma, and you get a trauma. Not Oprah. Not Oprah.
So, as we're waxing poetic about how traumatized these people are, Bree is being poetic. And looking around, and they walk away and they go to a separate part of the memory where they can talk in quiet. And Bree's looking at this lake, and she's seeing the reflection of the sky in the lake and how the water's not moving because it's a memory. And she's just like having like her own like little poetry moment. And the guys are like, yeah, nice observation. Sel immediately is like, so let's talk about what's happening right now. Nick, where are you? And are you safe? And Nick is like, actually, you don't need to know where I am. I'm not going to tell you. I refuse. You're not going to get that information from me, at least. But I will tell you that I'm okay. And I will tell you that I am bent on figuring out how to end everything. And by everything, I mean the Legendborn cycle. So, one, he feels like he's the person who's going to figure out how to do that without killing Bree, because immediately Sel's reaction is, you're gonna try to, what, you're gonna do what now? You're gonna try to kill Bree? And Nick is like, please be for real. I'm not gonna try to kill Bree.
That whole part is so funny. Sel immediately goes to you're gonna murder her. He's like, look, do you know who I am? Like,
Right.
give me a second.
He said, I am suffering under delusions of grandeur, but okay, not taking the easy way out.
I will say though, I have a feeling, and I feel like maybe I can't remember if it's confirmed or not, because the end of this gets a little like I remember what happens, but not necessarily in the events that they happen, if that makes, or like in the order that they happen, or how they get to that point. But I have a feeling he's with the Morganes.
Me too.
I do too.
Yeah.
Maybe that is.
So I think that's like,
I
think that's also probably why he's not saying anything too. Like, I think that he's like, okay, I'm learning some things. And I think that it could be possible, or I'm not sure yet, but I'm hoping that it could be possible. I'm trying to find a way to make it possible, but he's not like just out here by himself.
And do we all think that Sel's mama is like Head Morgane? No.
Oh.
I felt like he was
I did not think about it.
I felt like he was either with the Morganes or with Sel's mama, and then my brain was like, why not both?
Hold on to that, because I have thoughts to get to.
Okay.
For me, this is another reason why I'm look at Nick sideways, because how are you going to figure out how to break the cycle by yourself, sir? Like, it's like on you. In your brain, I'm going to figure out how to break the cycle. Because you have all the knowledge of how to do that without invoking some like ridiculousness on Bree. How would that actually do?
See, I didn't take it as him being like, I'm gonna do it by myself, or I'm the only one who can do it. I think that this is just my reading of it. I read it more as he watched his father die. He's never liked the order and what it stands for. Like, he only came back because of Bree. He's already been extremely fucked up by it. And then the events of what happened, like in my head, I guess, reading like this chapter in my head, then I'm thinking that he beheads Zhao or whatever. He sees his dad die, he beheads Zhao, and then in his head he's like, I could go with Bree and Sel and we deal with the same old like
Bullshit.
we protect Bree, we do all that stuff, right? Or I go and try to figure out a way to end this, because they're not going to figure out. They're not, or not that they won't find a way, but like Bree and Sel and them, that's not their goal right now.
And also
Is
from
to
what
actually
Nick
get to the root of the problem. Like, it
Nick
sounds like
knows,
to me that Nick is like
Sel is still bought in. Like Nick doesn't even really know about.
that too.
I mean, and Sel is still kind of bought in, even
Bought in.
though.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like if Nick said, "Oh, I'm with the Morgaine," Sel would be
Pissed.
immediately blow up about it. But I think in my head, like, in my head, in the way that I've read it, it's more that he's kind of realizing, like, no, this is a cycle that has to stop, and not just like some like a shorter issue. And I don't necessarily read it as him being like, I'm the only one who can do it, but like Bree has more immediate issues right now. And so, not that I'm the only one who can do it, but I'm the only one with the capacity right now. And he also has his own, like, personal
Beef.
beef.
I kind of read it more as like, if after he killed Zhao and his father died, and if Bree was standing there alone, he would have gone with Bree and convinced her, like, okay, this is the new plan. We got to break the whole cycle. But he saw Sel and was like, oh no, I got to do it by myself. And also knows that Sel is not going to hurt Bree, and Bree's safe with Sel. But also, like, I'm not trying to have these philosophical debates trying to convince Sel that this is the right thing to do. So I'm just going to go do it. Either way,
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some holes in the plan, but I do think part of it is like he's doing the research.
Some holes in the plan.
He's in the exploratory phase of this idea.
He has a plan to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it feels like child soldier, always told he was the chosen one, finds out he's not the chosen one, already had an issue with the entity that said that he was a chosen one. So as soon as he no longer has the weight of being the chosen one, is also choosing a quest that he feels like he is the best positioned to make his quest, which is a whole new, let's break down the whole cycle quest.
The thing that I find so hilarious.
It's so funny that you're saying this like so skeptically, but none of that is necessarily a bad thing.
That's yes, but also even in like none of that actually being a bad thing, like your inability to just not even give Nick the benefit of the doubt, but just like acknowledge that it is very possible that his motivations are not selfish. Like you could have said the exact same thing without making it feel like this man is on a power trip, ego-driven quest to be the guy.
The very best.
Like, Bayana just said it, as in he's never bought into the order. He knows the only way to break this like fucked up child soldier, like centuries long thing is to tear the entire order apart. And you said he just found out that he wasn't the chosen one, so he decided to go find a quest to make sure that he had chosen one main character energy. Y'all explain the same thing.
But he's never given that he wanted to be the chosen one. I think that's where
Porshèa
I'm like,
just refuses
because he from the beginning has always been like, fuck this.
Porshèa said Nick got an ego and I refuse to see it any other way. And he is run by his ego, even though you have been reading the same book with two people who keep saying, I don't see.
And y'all can keep it. And I'm going to keep doing me. And we'll see who's right in the end.
I love it. I'm just saying, like, and the thing is too is like neither one of us are saying that you might be right. Like, I'm not saying that you're not. It's just so funny how your reading of it is the most cynical reading of Nick possible. Continue on, girl. Keep going. Keep doing you. Keep doing you.
I blame it on his environment because I don't buy that you grew up with all that and you're suddenly like, no, I'm totally fine. I'm totally the opposite of everything I've ever been taught. Okay.
They kidnapped and wiped his mother's memory of him.
Okay, sure.
Sometimes, I mean, I feel like that would radicalize a kid.
Sure.
I'm just saying, it could. Not that he's perfect, but
She's not giving
or that he
him
doesn't have any growth
a
to do. But I'm
thing.
definitely like, I could see how he might question some things after that.
She is not giving him a
single
thing.
inch. It's fine. It's hilarious.
It's fine.
There's plenty of Nick lovers to combat my Nick hate. It's fine. He doesn't need help from me.
And he is not getting it. Okay?
He's not gonna get it.
He's not gonna
Do I
get
look
it.
I care? I don't. Like,
Oh my gosh.
okay. So it's funny because we get to the point where he wants to find another way. And he says, and so I'm sure y'all take it the very like more optimistic view of what he says here. But he says this is the way he's talking about what the scene they had just seen with the like 150 knights turned to 13 who are enhanced by Merlin for the Bloodlines. This is the beginning of the order, the beginning of centuries of taking things from children and their families. The order took all three of our mothers in one way or another. My father did the deeds. He was its loyal foot soldier, but even he saw that there was corruption, political games. Even a petty, evil, broken clock is right twice a day. And Sel says, and yet you killed for him. And Nick says, I didn't kill Zal for my father. I killed him for me. And Sel then answers, we should come back to that. And Nick is like, the order took our childhoods from us. So if I go back, the Regents will never let us be together. Brianna, even if they let me live at all. So I just wanted to put it like, I had a question of like, when he says petty, evil, broken clock, like from the conversation, it sounds like he's talking about his father, but it honestly could apply to both his father and the order. And if it's applying to both his father and the order, what does he think the order got right? And
I think he's talking about his dad.
And here he's saying like his
about
father was right about there being corruption in the order.
order.
But I'm like, how is there corruption in the order if the order is functioning the way that it was built to function?
Well, because it's not necessarily. Like, it is in the sense of, like, it's built on those systems, but I think we've kind of seen how it's shifted from the scene that they've just seen, right? The scene that they've just seen is crazy. The scene they just watched, right? Like, they're talking about the way things are set up with the regents and all of that, like, is a different, like, what's his name? Lord Davis was talking about in his racist rant to Bree at the end of last book. He was talking about, and I think also somebody else mentioned maybe during the funeral about like the different factions and how there's like the traditionalists and there's the people who are just here for the money and the power and the like. So I think that he's talking about it in that sense of like the kind of new, more modern ways that the order is corrupt, in addition to him just not fucking with it as a concept to begin with.
Yeah,
so
I think the
I don't
corruption
think he's
is
saying his dad is fully right about like. I don't think he's saying his dad is fully right about the problems with the order, but that he clearly saw the corruption of the order. And what his solution was to fix it or whatever, or address it, was not the solution, but he was right about what he saw.
Yeah. And I think,
or that he saw it was there. His opinion of what it was and why it was there is wrong. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the corruption they're talking about is the fact that Camlin has come, Arthur is awake, Arthur was not given the keys to the kingdom. The regents held that power. And how how the system and the order is supposed to function, what would not be a corrupt order would be the regents peacefully hand over power when Arthur awakens. Instead, they January 6th it. And so
Oh.
now we've got Stop the Steal versus only they can fix it. Did you catch that? Did you? Okay. Not the fact that the entire governmental structure is corrupt for the people in which they hold power over. That's not the problem. The problem is that the people in power are not playing by the rules and affecting the other people of power. The power holders.
But
are
I think
fighting.
Nick is saying both.
Yeah, Nick is saying both, and Nick is saying
It's like my father's
my
right
dad was
about
only
that part
worried
of it,
about my
and
dad was only
also
worried about the January 6th regents not handing over power part, and like that is corruption, but also the best way to make sure that that doesn't happen again is just burn it. And I think one thing that is really interesting about that too, though, is that, and you'll like this, Porshèa, a lot of times the people who want to burn shit to the ground are the ones that are most safe or insulated from like the damage of that burning. They're not the ones that are going to bear the brunt of the collapse of that system because they have a safety net, they have cushion, they have privileges. And so I do think that while Nick has the
spirit.
the spirit, yes, but also like he's also embodying that sense of like when you become so extreme, I mean, he's kind of like following in his dad's footsteps, right? Where it's like you can start off with a reasonable understanding of something, but then your proposed solution is just as extreme, and you're not worried about the collateral damage. And at what point does the collateral damage become so big that it's worth rethinking the solution? Right? Like how many
I'm
innocent
curious what the
people.
collateral damage would be, which maybe it's the demons or whatever. I also, though, did have a thought because I know people have been talking about like or theorizing or hoping for. I don't know if they're, but like a Nick corruption arc or something. So I guess I am curious of like what he would do if he discovered that literally the only way, there is no other way to end the cycle than for Bree to die. I think that's a question, and I don't think that that's one that he's actually answered either, because he was shooketh at Sel's like assumption, which on the one hand, yes, like how could you think that? But at the same time, I feel like it's a pretty valid question of like,
how far are you willing to go?
Then what?
Yeah.
If not, then what are you gonna do?
Yeah. I think, I mean, I would be interested to see like how far he goes. It makes sense. It would make Porshèa happy, or not happy, but just she'd feel justified.
Vindication.
So, vindicated. I am vindicated. Sorry.
If there's like, so let me just say this. For the OG series that this podcast did talk about, I predicted the demise of the great old wizard to a friend who was like also into Harry Potter, and she was so doubtful. She was like, that can't be what's happening here. And I was like, okay, that's cool. We'll get there. We'll see what happens. It's just a theory. And then we got there, and she was like, yeah, no, I have to bow to your superior, like, theoretical skills. I was like, yeah. So, not saying that's what's going to happen here, but what I'm saying is
that you want us to bow if that's what happened.
I want for us to name the episode, if it happens, Portia's Vindication. Like, I need vindication at last. for when that does happen, because that would be a fun. I feel like it's gonna be a very fun episode if it happens.
Mm-hmm. I also
Um,
wouldn't necessarily be mad if that was the case. Only, I think I would be a little disappointed in the sense of like, but maybe it could be complicated.
We were
But I feel
rooting for
like it
you.
would decide. I feel like it would decide the triangle
Yeah.
for Bree, so it would be disappointing on that side. But as like a character development, or you know what I mean, like I wouldn't be upset at it. Um,
We're also wrapped up in this
but you know, we'll
triangle.
see.
I think part of the reason why I
You said
see it
what?
that way is that so many stories that do have a love triangle, um, they get one of the components of the triangle out of here because something that they do. So they're no longer. That's why they're no
I
longer
know, and
able
that's
to be
why,
part of the
I've
triangle.
seen, but I part of me doesn't think that Tracy would do that, just based off of like the things that I've seen her um
Say and tweet.
talk about, like when discussing the triangle. Um, but
So that's part
also
of my
I feel like if it
reasoning. I'm like,
serves the
it
story
could.
better, then it serves the story better. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Mhm.
like, I think that it just kind of depends. I don't think the triangle is the most important part of the story by far. Um, but it is a draw, and it's something that's, you know, it's not like it's hidden when you come into into the story to like um so it, yeah, but again, I don't think that it's the most important part, and I think that if that is what ends up happening, then that's what ends up happening, and it could be really interesting. Um, or if he finds that he can't do it, then that's also an interesting thing to like realize, like your personal comfort is more important to you than the system that you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that's also a discovery that could happen. It kind of depends on,
Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
bought in. I think that the end of the day, I'm not bought into him wanting to end the cycle solely because I mean, I guess there's a lot of different reasons, but I think the reason that he gives here is that like they ruined my childhood, they ruined our mothers, they ruined blah blah blah, and it's like, cool. I get that you're angry and that like this is an ongoing thing, and this is a like for you, this has been your whole life. Um, and so like you're like this all has to end, and like it's a part of what I'm going to do next is figure out how to end it. But also part of me is just like all that anger is only gonna last so long and motivate you for so long. And but to be fair, this has all happened within like a semester. So who am I?
It's only been a couple, yeah, not even the end of semester.
Who am
It's only
I?
November.
What am I even talking about timeline wise? Anyways, um, let's get back into the story. So Sel wants to get to the point about like what's actually happening and like why I don't know why like all this is happening. And Bree, I mean, no, Nick is like he doesn't know how to figure out how to break the cycle without like killing Bree, but he believes there is a way. And then Sel says, which feels like a very like non-copyright infringement way of saying this. Um,
Mhm.
Sel says, "Do you realize that you sound like that cartoon bug thing, but to wish on your stars for your dreams to come true?" And Bree is sitting here agreeing with Nick, like, no, no, there actually has to be another way. And you mean Jiminy Cricket. And then Nick jokes back and is like, yeah, from Pinocchio. And Sel's like, I cannot believe that I'm stuck with you two. And so like this is like there again, more warm triangle-y
Well,
feelings between each other.
yeah, and I think the like lighter side of their dynamic as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're on limited time or anything. Like Arthur just enjoys letting them have time to powwow in his memories.
Well, they don't really know. Bree didn't even realize she could.
Do this.
She's just vibing.
Well,
She's caught up in the emotions of it, I guess. I don't know.
it's fun. So something that Sel can't keep to himself anymore is his concern for Bree's safety as he descends into demonhood. So he jumps off of their like beginning like diving board of like let's have some jokes in this minute to start inside discussing. So they had an inside joke minute. He's doing an inside discussion in modern Welsh, which Bree cannot understand as well because it like the like ye old English Welsh that um
Ye
that
old
Arthur like automatically like translate in his head for her. It's so different from modern Welsh that she can only pick up certain words. But basically, that's what she like is able to pick up is that like Sel is fearful for her safety, knowing how things are happening, and he's warning Nick about his descent. And Nick is like, "It's cool, like I trust you, bro." And then Bree's like, "I trust you too." And it's like, oh, cute bonding and trust among the
Well, there's also a moment before he goes into being afraid for Bree. First he says that she's beautiful, and then Nick agrees. So there's also like a kind of like bonding thing that they have over like their feelings for Bree, but like in Welsh, so Bree is not fully, she's trying to pick out the words that she knows, but is not really clear on what's happening. So that's another like I feel like it's a at least triangle wise is also a moment like Nick doesn't get
Jealous or
or like feel weird about Sel saying that. He's kind of like,
told you.
yep.
I was wondering about that too, in terms of like how much they pick up from each other, that like this is not news to Nick, even though it's the first time they were like speaking about it plainly, I guess. Because he's been able to like kind of pick up on Sel's emotions around Bree or about Bree. So it's just now the first time it's being talked about, and or they're talking about it, but it's something that they both have already acknowledged as happening. But either way, I still think it's weird. Especially because she's right there.
But I wonder too if it has anything to do with I don't know, it was last episode or maybe the one before that where Sel is like, do you think Nick would like begrudge us this? You know what I mean? Like he left type situation.
I mean,
yeah,
but I still kind of feel like, I'm sorry, he says like, right, 2 seconds ago, like, of course I'm not trying to kill Bree. I'm trying to find a way for us to be together. The like order will not let us be together. So it's not like he's, at least what he's saying so far, it's not that he's given up on them.
No.
As a couple. So is he just like on board with the throuple? Like, is that what's happening here?
That's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like, in a way that I think is very weird.
Yeah, it's like it should like no matter what the relationship, like you have to have a moment where you all like everyone involved in the relationship is on the same page outwardly with what the relationship is. Like, let's just put the words out there so we all know that this is how we're moving. Okay.
Let's not do that in a language that one of us can't really fully understand.
Right.
Just
in this moment doesn't really give us that.
I also wonder if one of y'all was saying they're not really aware of a timeline. Or not a timeline, a countdown.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it could also be partially that of like they kind of are acting as if they have all the time in the world to talk about all of these things.
And that's what's annoying too, is it's like, do you know you have 30 minutes? 30 minutes, 30 minutes. Like, it feels like that's what should be going on here. But like, cause like they should know they only have 30 minutes because every time Nick and Bree have been in one of his memories, it has not lasted for long. So it's like, they should know there's a time.
I also think I also think there's also, like, I feel like the other
Teenagers.
times, well, that, but also I feel like the other times Bree has gone to Nick partially because she wants to see him, but I think part of it is also, like, information gathering. Like, before it was like, "Where are you?" Like, "We gotta figure out where you are," and that kinda thing, whereas, like, in this case, it's not like they were trying to get obviously, they have conversations that need to be had, which is like, "Where are you? What's going on?" But it's not like they have an immediate, um, task at hand or, like, an immediate thing to get from him, I guess, if that makes sense? So maybe that's partially why too, that it's not like they have a specific, goal other than to just be there with him. But
Yeah, yeah. So let's continue. We are harping on the brevity of it all because immediately the memory starts to crumble, and Sel is asked because he's the only one who's it's the first time he's here, so he's immediately, and he's also just always alert for changes in the like environment. So he's
Mhm.
like, "What is happening? What is going on?" When things start shaking and stuff, and Bree and Nick are like, "Oh, these kind of things happen." And Nick,
Arthur
um,
doesn't like it when we come here to flirt.
were you
Last time we
expecting for
made
this to
out
be a
for a good
stable situation? I fear we misled you. Yeah. Uh, and it's interesting because in this moment, like while like I was saying that Bree and Nick have been in this enough to like know better, um, he spends the last moment as I feel like it's a cliffhanger thing that authors do so cool, but also character wise, because I'm very dug into who is he as a character. Um, he brings up something that he cannot follow up on because things are crumbling around them. Uh, he's like, "There's another way of living than in the way that the order has shown us. I've seen it." And
That's
does
what tips me
that
to more
and that's
games.
what clued me into I think he's with the Morgans. And I'm like, it's like when he
Mhm,
was saying and him being cagey about where he is him like and
mhm.
like doing the whatever protections they have in place for him not to be able to share the locations, he's doing that. So I have so many questions about like how does the Morgan recruitment plan happen? Like, was he already like how Bree had the note from Homegirl? Did he also have a note for just in case of emergency, hit up this number kind of situation?
Mm,
Like, is because like he quickly, this is very quick from like being in the woods, having chopped off somebody's head to now being safeguarded by another community or place where you're just talking about a life beyond the order. So like they've indoctrinated you enough where you're like, I can see life beyond, and it's like, what does that even mean? Mm-hmm.
um so my thought about this is when he left the order the first time, someone from Morgane's heard about him absconding or whatever and reached out to him and he was like, "Nah, I'm not with none of this. I don't want no magic, no nothing. I'm just trying to be once born, like leave me alone." But he kept it because he also kind of knew that you can't just walk away from the order. Um, and so he just had that information from whoever reached out to him the first time he left uh, the
So
order.
you're
That's my
saying,
thought process.
yeah, he was probably, but I think we're the same. Like, was he
Mm.
recruited? And the answer is likely yes, he's
Yeah,
been recruited.
mhm,
yeah. It was like a keep my card type of slow
mhm.
burn.
So then this also gives me questions about the connection and the way that it falls apart because we haven't heard any other memories fall apart this way. This specific memory, because the other memories, there's a moment where, well, this is different because it has Sel in it, but it doesn't matter. In the other memories, whenever the connection falls apart, Bree sees the like visualization of like her bloodlines, her different bloodlines. In this one, she sees a visualization of both hers and Sel's and Nick's, like a 3 divergent bloodline paths. And um Nick, the blood walk cracks like a mirror, dividing them into their bloodlines. And when she goes to reach towards Nick, she hits an invisible wall. And Nick tells her to be safe and tells both of them to be safe. And then whenever Bree's eyes open and close, both her and Sel are in the darkness, looking upset because they're not happy with this abrupt memory fade. But of them all, Nick seems like he was the most prepared. So is there a level of like, if he's with the Morganes, do they have something where they were like, that's enough time of this guy being away from this like plane, like we can't trust him beyond like this time limit or whatever magic is at hand, so they break the connection. So it doesn't feel like it's an Arthur breaking the connection. It feels like it might have been an outside force, and was that outside force the Morganes?
I just assumed it was Arthur, honestly.
I mean, I
Because
could
it's not
see
like
it being,
it's not like Nick controls. I could see it being the Morganes, but it's not like Nick controls when he goes into this place.
yeah.
And I still don't know what it looks like, or we still don't know what it looks like from the other side. You know what I mean? Like we don't know what Nick looks like from the like his physically, or Bree and Sel if they're just sitting. If they just look like they're sitting there asleep.
We
or
do
whatever,
know
or
that
if they're in, like,
Bree
a
kind of
trance.
is like frozen or in a trance, and that's why I think it was at in the lodge parking lot or whenever she tried, and he was like, "You can't do that here because you just check out." Like she's just kind of gone. So I'm assuming I think we were saying that we assume that's the same thing with Nick, because we were like, "Oh, does he have to be asleep?" And it was like, "What if they're fighting and she just pulls him into a memory?" Right. So I think maybe he told the Morganes like about these memory walks or blood walks, and
I kind of doubt. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
they pulled him
We
out, or
obviously
someone
can't
just saw him
tell, but I
being,
just feel like
yeah.
Nick telling him that or telling them that would be kind of weird. I feel like it was just Arthur, because Arthur's
I feel like
also.
for
I've been trying to hold out. He's getting stronger.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think there's
Yeah.
like I think that that's also part of it. Is like as Bree is able to do. Bree is at like part of the reason she was even able to do this in the first place is because of the way that Volition kind of amplified her power, or at least that like moment, like her powers are amplified, which is why she was able to bring Sel with her. But even as she's getting stronger, like Arthur is too. So I feel like the other times, like the last time they were interrupted, it wasn't Arthur who interrupted them. It was just that they were like Nick was in danger.
The first time that they
And
have
then
the
I feel
discussion,
like
she's on the plane, and it wasn't that Nick was in danger. It was that she
no, I said the last time, not the first time. The last time.
I'm just saying I feel like it's been Arthur other times. Like I feel like he like has
No, I
said
think
like
maybe one of
what he wants her
those.
to
Yeah, if maybe
see.
wasn't the plane. He was like, yeah, yeah, because they had to do the whole the bargain or whatever. So I feel like it has been
Yeah.
Arthur most of the time.
Yes.
But I think it's also him this time.
I question if it's the Morganes not because Nick told them, but if like the parameters of like wherever they are. Again, if the thing is that like you're not able to like share where they are, then I imagine they also have a level of magic for anything that would like possibly violate their that connectivity. And so we don't see another memory walk
Excuse me.
for the rest of the book, but is wherever like if every time Bree tries to get in contact with Nick, is it going to get harder and harder if he's under the care of the Morganes, because they have things in place, like wards in place, to keep any information about where they are, or like to keep where they are under wraps. So like anything that tries to break that connection is going to get forced out.
Yeah, maybe. I just
These are
assumed it was
all
Arthur's bitch ass.
How
questions that
powerful
need
are the
answers.
Morganes? That's the
I
question.
just assumed the Morganes were like Merlin level powerful, but you know, different resources, different we've seen already there are so many different ways to like
Aether.
use ether, so not like they're one-to-one necessarily. So I don't think that that's an impossibility, but we just need more info.
It'll also just be difficult too, because as much as like we don't see the blood walk again, and you're saying like, will she be able to do it because of the Morgaines? Will she be able to do it because she's about to be with Erebus? You know, so who knows? We have no idea.
She needs to get in contact with her ancestors, but she also can't. She needs to not get in contact with her ancestors because she did that when Erebus. Like, it's how long is she gonna be with Erebus? Like, that's the real question.
We've got like one
rescues her
good
ass.
chapter left. I just want everyone to process
their
that we
voices.
have maybe one good chapter left. Things are going immediately
to shit.
wrong next week. We're gonna have a little moment to like squee, and then things are going to be terrible.
As one does when reading a book by Tracy Deonn.
Mm-hmm. Especially in the final hours. Well,
we did it.
Who MVP? Mine was very like I put Selbrick just because I think it was like cute moments, but I don't know that any of them did anything in particular to like, you know what I mean? Like it's really just the three of them, and everybody else sucks. So
yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Like,
I copied your answer. So
because I think in my head
one.
I was thinking, yeah,
Bree.
I was thinking like
No.
Sel for
No.
recognizing that Bree. Yeah, I was like, for me, I kind of went in it ended up in a circle. I was like, Sel for like recognizing that Bree needs to feel safe in this moment and whatever. And then it was like, but
Nick
Bree
for being the person she feels safe.
safe. And then Nick, yeah,
for
so
being
it's like,
the safe space. Yeah,
yeah, all of them together. We know that Porshèa did not do that.
No, absolutely not. My real answer is the ancestors of volition for like patching up the hole, like whatever magics they have in place. It was able to immediately repair. So I like that really strong magic. But I'm like, can this be like the third episode in a row where I'm like the nebulous ancestors? But I kind of feel like that's my actual answer, because I'm like, otherwise I'm like,
that's fine.
Otherwise, I'm like, is it the magic of haughty Merlin? Like, I don't know, girl. That doesn't feel right either.
Yeah.
It feels like I have points there, but I don't really feel it. Like, the thing I feel is the Volition ancestors. So I guess I'll sit it with that.
Yeah, I think that's fair for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
and like going in a bench, like I benched Arthur and Merlin though, because ultimately it is the two of them that have us in this situation in the first place. And like, yeah, he's a hot boy, but he's also trash for
Hotties can be
all
trash.
of this.
I was thinking about I benched Merlin, and I was thinking about it from the perspective of like we were saying how of that time it's divine rights of kings, and kings rulings are law, and like that's the whole thing about like even Lancelot like yelling at Arthur but not doing much and just like kind of agreeing with him even if they don't really agree, or just falling in line, I guess. But then I was thinking about how like Merlin actually have like power.
Really great power. Like,
yeah,
so like it can last for centuries.
Like without like all of this is just like Arthur's kind of, or not, I guess not all of it, but it's kind of like Arthur's impulse. And it reminded me a lot of when we were talking about Dead Davis and Isaac, and how they kind of, how it was like, okay, how much is Isaac following him versus like, oh, he just found his like-minded person, and they're crazy, just, or not, I don't know, I don't want to say crazy. Their toxicity just feeds off of each other. Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think that is also what it is with Arthur and Merlin. And so then my thought was like, well, I've benched Arthur. We know Arthur sucks. I'm just gonna give an extra one to
Yeah.
Merlin. So that's how I
I
ended up
feel
with
like
just
I
Merlin.
feel like we have not I feel like Merlin has not gotten enough smoke
No, he's kind of skated
from
by.
us. He's kind of yeah,
Yeah.
and I feel like Arthur is definitely like the capital V villain. Like I stand by that, but and you know he's more active in the story. Like he's not
But all of this is enabled by Merlin's
but
power.
by Merlin, right? Exactly. Like Arthur wouldn't have been able to do this on his own. Um, so I just feel like he needs a little smoke, and I'm hoping that there's more to be had in
Mm-hmm.
Oathbound. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. I just haven't it's been a non-active like underlying like Merlin can catch hands because why? Like why did you back
Mhm.
this man? Like why?
And he hasn't really like he's been like again like we've seen him briefly, but he doesn't really speak much. He
and he's
doesn't really. He's just kind of like there in the background,
like he
and
built
he's
the
like
sword,
doing
the
he's
stone
doing
and
the
the sword,
magic.
you know?
He's yeah, but he's not really like we have not seen a conversation like a real conversation,
Mm-mm.
but
Like
still.
for me right now, like Merlin is only like a smidge above like benching Lancelot because Lancelot is also part of like going along with the system and like he like there's so many times where he's like questioning things and he just goes along with it anyway. Like at least we see Lancelot
Mhm.
questioning it and like so you chose even when you had doubts to go like along with it just for the ride. Um so that's why I'm just kind of like, Nebulous. I need to see Merlin villain crafting more. So I gave it to
Mhm.
Arthur because I know actively what Arthur is doing, and none of it is good. And so F Arthur forever. He can keep the bench. It's his.
Mhm.
He earned it. Chelsea gave Bree the MVP and then agreed that Merlin and all the Merlins who perpetrated the Legendborn cycle without trying to find a better way should be benched. Yeah. I like that wording of like perpetuating this thing without trying to find another way.
They don't.
Because
Why would they? They
Mhm.
don't. They benefit from it being the way that it
but
is.
there's
Well, I don't do the
no, the
Merlins benefit
Legendborn,
from
the
this?
Merlins don't, and neither really
The
does the
Legend
Legendborn. And
either.
it's they don't benefit the way that like I don't even think art like Bree or Nick when we thought Nick was a sign of Arthur. I don't think any of them benefit from this system. Like there has to have been a better way. Even if you agree with the like fighting demons type of thing, like it's just a matter of not questioning what has been because that is what has been.
Or seeing what happens when you question and how you are silenced and so not like Nick's mother like whenever you do question
Mhm.
a system or a change then you get dealt with, so better to not and go
Yeah.
along than to question and get booted.
But I think
Mhm.
that there is something to, and this is why, like, this is how I ended up with benching Merlin in particular this episode. There's something to having a level of power that can kind of insulate you a bit, not completely, but gives you a little bit more authority, maybe, or audacity to try. Um, like you see the way that Sel being a powerful Merlin even like just talks to other people in the way that like William and stuff is like, yo, chill out, or like, like even the way he comes at things, it's because he does own this certain level of power. Even like Tacitus, who like um we had said like kind of started to question whether or not his Merlin or his mesmers were taking on Bree, but like didn't want to cause attention to it, so just was like, I'm gonna just hope for the best. There has to have been throughout the thousands of years that the system has been in place some Merlin's in particular, but also other scions or just someone who had a outsized amount of power and just weren't brave enough to do anything with it. So I get it. Let's binge the whole line. Bunch of cowards. Thank you for listening. Join us next week when we discuss chapters 52 through 54.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com and follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create.
Bye.
Bye.